Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.
Very much.
And I thought, if you can tell Adrian, that I thought the magnetical and the gravitational are basically inseparable.
Crede că magnetic și gravitațional sunt inseparabile.
And it's from your point of observation. If the car is going away from you, it looks magnetical. If the car is coming toward you, it looks gravitational. So it all depends on your point of observation.
Spune că depinde de punctul tău de vedere, de unde, că poate să fie și magnetic, dar să vedem ce spune și domnul Alex. Would you like to listen Mr. Keshe and Mr. Alex also?
Just a moment, please. Just a moment. Am înțeles ceea ce a spus colegul nostru. Am o problemă doar cu vorbitul în limba asta, dar o înțeleg perfect.
He understands English, but he can't express himself well in English.
Și atunci, hai să ne uităm un pic, să analizăm ce înseamnă o rază magnetică.
Let's try to analyze what means magnetical ray.
Și să vedem de unde a apărut noțiunea de rază gravitațională.
And from where appears the notion of gravitational ray?
Pentru că această noțiune nu există în cărțile domnului Keshe.
Because we didn't find this notion in the book of Mr. Keshe. We studied.
Da, putem să inovăm.
We can innovate.
Dar nu putem să postulăm.
But we can postulate.
Pentru că nu noi am învățat și am inventat această știință.
Because we are not the people who invented this science.
Și doar inventatorul are dreptul să postuleze.
And only the innovator has a right to postulate.
Este punctul meu de vedere și în cere tare că mi-am exprimat public.
This is my point of view, and I'm sorry that I had the courage to tell it publicly.
Can you ask him to repeat himself? He's talking nonsense. He has not understood the science at all. Can you ask him to repeat himself?
Poți să repeți încă o dată?
Because what he just explained is not what it is.
Normally,
we talk about a collection of fields which makes a plasma, not the ray of gravity or magnetical.
No. Here
in a plasma technology, we always saying it's a collection of fields which makes a plasma, not a single field, a gravity or magnetical. And when you have a collection of fields, is collection of magnetical and gravitational spectrum of fields.
De acord cu tine în ceea ce ai spus că avem în plasma avem o colecție de raze.
He agreed that in plasma we have a collection of ray. rays.
No. There is a big difference between rays and fields. There's a big difference.
Este o diferență mare între raze și câmpuri.
Pentru că
maybe you have to go and read the book and understand it before you make such a comment. Because to what you said, I understood you have understood nothing about reading the book. Your knowledge is absolutely zero. Even you try to explain it your way. You have right to your opinion, but this is not what the technology of the plasma is. Plasma is a collection of magnetic fields, not one ray or one magnetical or gravitational.
Da, spune că...
That's what I thought with your work. You have not understood the principle of the plasma technology. And what I heard from you is 100% I'm correct, that you have to understand a plasma is a collection of fields, not singularity or ray.
Da, trebuie să înțelegi că plasma este o colecție de câmpuri, nu de...
Am înțeles. Oprește. Așa este cum spuneți dumneavoastră, domnul Keshe. Dar foarte multă lume nu înțelege și vin și explică celorlalți oameni că o interacțiune plasmatică este o interacțiune între o rază magnetică și o rază gravitațională, ceea ce dumneavoastră n-a spus niciodată.
Da. Okay, I understood what you said, that but other people just said that plasma is a collection of two rays, one gravitational and one magnetical rays, not fields.
No. Plasma, first of all, plasma is a collection of fields. If you read all the book, because on the other hand, plasma has both magnetical and gravitational. Otherwise, it doesn't become a plasma. Sun is not a sun if it doesn't have both gravity and magnetical. And it's a collection of fields. I've heard him making this comment in a number of teachings, and is this actually misinforming and is carrying on with this misinformation. You have to ask him to go and get educated in the book number 1 completely. And then he says, we all studied it when we understand. People who understand the technology, we support. People who don't understand the technology and pretend to understand, we have to make clear, because I've heard him in a couple of other teachings, and he's totally has not understood the principle of the plasma. And he does not let anybody make any opinion except him in all his work. Even in the Romanian community, he is more or less dictating his way through, and we are aware of it. But you have to go back and study the book. And you have not understood the technology at all, or in a way, you're trying to build the technology or science on the back of Keshe Foundation technology, which to us does not make any sense. If you work as a ray, you talk as a field and collection of magnetic and gravitational field to make a plasma.
I have to translate, Mr. Keshe.
Please translate. He has understood the technology totally the wrong way around, and is forcing his way to the others in the Romanian community that is correct and the way it is. And this has to stop, or tell him to write a book to explain it the way he understands it. But don't misinform what he hasn't understood.
Yes. Mr. Keshe, I was also there, but he didn't say about ray. Other person said about rays.
Yes, but it's a collection of fields.
Collection of fields, yes.
Yeah, I've listened to, and when he says we studied it and it's not there, it's totally, I cannot say anything because we never judge, we don't peer review. But when you refer to my technology, what we understand is a plasma is a collection of fields.
Yeah, of course.
Mr. Keshe, sorry. It's not possible to other people come here and did raise gravitational and raise magnetic interaction și formează o plasmă. Te rog frumos să lumea, că nu...
Even a ray of a gravitational and magnetical rays of magnetical and gravitational make a field that the field itself has a plasma characteristic.
Yes.
It's like a light.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yes. Is o magnetical, este o interacțiune magnetică care creează un câmp.
When you have a ray of magnetical and ray of gravitational, which is built of the same thing, yes, you create a plasma of light.
Yes.
You don't make a plasma ball plasma. When you have a collection of fields, then you make a plasma. And in the teachings I've listened in a couple of times, you or whoever in your group, and then you add it to each other, you are misinformed about the whole thing. And this has to be corrected by maybe me, by Alex, that this is only coming through 2 or 3 people in the Romanian community, because they have not understood, and they are bringing a lot of, to me, a nonsense technology or knowledge to build something which doesn't work. If you talk about the ray magnetical and ray gravitational, because it all exists the same as we said on this last teaching, you create a plasma, ray of plasma, a field of plasma. And then it's in the form of a light. It's not in the form of a plasma, as we call it, a ball of plasma. An entity which has gravitational, magnetical, what we call collection of.
Ai înțeles, Adrian? Traduc? Adrian? Alo?
Am înțeles foarte bine. Respect your lesson, Mr. Keshe. Respect. Am un respect foarte mare pentru noastră.
I have a great respect for you, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you very much. But the respect doesn't count into it. This is the knowledge which you in Romanian community, you start playing to whatever, maybe you understand different than what I do or what we do as what we call knowledge seekers. And to me, what you're putting together is totally a nonsense. Unless you discovered a new technology in plasma, please write about it that we understand, we have to respect it. But you refer to my technology and then to put something to it, you have the right to do. But to me, what you put across is mixing things together and building something out of it, and it's a lot of nonsense. It does not make sense. If you talk, you see, you cannot bring a ray and then say it's got gravitational as a field and then call it a plasma as a ball, which is one doesn't work. I've heard 2 or 3 times this comment in background with the Romanian structure, and it's somebody has misunderstood and that you're trying to bring it out, and to me, it has no room in the understanding of the plasma. It's very wrong. It's not just only wrong, it doesn't make sense. Maybe somebody when has been drunk makes sense to them, but not to the sober man, because it does not apply to the law of the physics in the universe.
Așa este cum spuneți dumneavoastră. Dar haideți să ne uităm un pic și în ochii noștri și în ochii celor care vorbim între noi.
It's like this, Mr. Keshe, I agree with you, but let's see in the eyes of each other which
Și
are talking.
Și să încercăm să ne percepem între noi.
And to try to perceive between us.
Pentru că
I don't need to, because I'm not arrogant, but what I understand it's a misinterpretation of the knowledge and trying to say it's correct. When you misrepresent the knowledge because you misunderstood or you understand a different way, then you try to push it and bring doubts, and then I have to go and correct the doubts because you misunderstood. And I've heard this before, and if you have what you say is something you have discovered, everything is whatever, publish it, talk about it, yes. But to the knowledge of the science we have, what you put across does not make sense. And then trying to dismiss everything that what it goes. We had many people like you who done this, and then to put it back right, it took us months. That's the reason I stopped it straight away.
Domnul Keshe, așa spuneți dumneavoastră și așa credeți dumneavoastră.
This is maybe your perception.
So we close it at this. You take your perception somewhere else because it doesn't make sense here. Very correct.
Domnul Keshe, ați vorbit de condensator de 20
and please do not bring this perception into the Romanian community and push it because you don't allow anybody else in that community to speak. It's a total, I listen to it. We are very close with the Romanian community. We know what's going on. And this has to stop. This we see now in only in Romanian community, 2 or 3 of you have started this, and you think now you do something with it. If you have such an understanding, take it somewhere else and do it, because what you say is totally misinformation. Okay. Or go and read the book and come back and do it, because we read the book, we did 2 or 3 of you, whatever, have come together. And all the systems you have made is a copy of what the Keshe Foundation head office has released. And then you try to say something has been done. We try to encourage people to come out with new ideas. That's how we encourage Alex or Jalal or whatever. But when we see wrong information, wrong understanding, and trying to propagate it across the whole technology, I don't allow it. You have that knowledge, take it somewhere else. This is not the place to discuss it, because I listen to you and the background in the Romanian community, and this is somehow you build it up. You're 100% correct, but there is no room in Keshe Foundation for it, because it doesn't go with the knowledge. It doesn't fit the knowledge. Allow other people in the Romanian community who understood to explain. Do not shut them up. Then you understand, they tell you you're totally wrong too. And if you have he understands English very well, you don't need to translate.
Yes.
He understands English absolutely inside out. And we've seen people who came like this, and then they start dividing and dividing because of their own misunderstanding. And then it goes back to spreading things the wrong way. And then somebody said, we try from Morning Keshe Foundation to stop nonsense before it becomes part of it, that we don't have to work later on to correct it.
I want to say only moment, Mr. Keshe. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
you very much indeed.
Thank you for your message. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Stop this process which you have started. I've attended without you knowing in the background, and I watched the Romanian chat very closely, and we see 2 or 3 of you have started this, and you think you've taken over. Allow the other people in Romanian group explain what you have misunderstood. And you're trying to expand on something which has no meaning in the world of the plasma as we know it and in the natural process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Keshe.
Thank you very much. Please allow in your community other people to talk. because you and other couple of other people have taken over the whole thing, and it gets dictatorship. And even in your groups, you don't allow other people to have a position. This is not the way Keshe Foundation works.
Dar
Thank you very much.
Mr. Keshe, thank you.
Yeah.
Am o mare problemă. De când a apărut o rază gravitațională?
I have a problem, a big problem. I don't understand from where appears gravitational ray.
Gravitational ray comes from the return of the magnetical.
Ai înțeles, da? Raza gravitațională vine de la întoarcerea celei magnetice.
This comes from the misrepresentation of mainly from Einstein, that in so many ways afterwards wrote that the light cannot be bent. But light itself is a collection of magnetic fields, or if it's as a field or as a what we call particle, and at certain point, due to lower speed or interaction, returns back. And because when it returns back, because it has a common denominator central magnetical centrifugal point, it becomes back to center, and in that process gathers for itself, it becomes gravitational. Creation started with magnetical.
Înseamnă că schimbăm un pic paradigma care am învățat-o la dumneavoastră și înseamnă că apare o noțiune nouă în această știință, raza gravitațională.
Translate.
So maybe we change the science and we have a new notion now.
No, we don't have. This is no. Gravitation always has been understood as in the old science, as well as modern science, that is a return of the same field. It's not that something just where you pull something in, or if you are of the same strength, you bring back in line with a field which comes to it as a bigger plasma dimension, because it is what we call spherical. All the rays which have led to creation always is the reflection of themselves coming back to the source. But in the same process, if you find other rays of the same strength, they collectively come back to the source. In the future, we show gravitational fields which are much bigger than the magnetical original. These are what we call field loops. It's a loop which completes itself back to the center of the gravity. We see them sometimes in the South Pole very clearly as a field loop. Some pictures have been taken from them, but nobody can explain it.
Thank you.
But this is in a discussion of the future when knowledge is more mature to come. This goes back. Let me explain to you something which maybe answers you very easily. This goes back to what just Alex brought up. Alex just brought something up which we never go to it in the world of the science of the plasma. Then it might explain to you something. Acceleration. Yeah. If you read what acceleration is defined here, it's a change of velocity. In a plasma technology, we don't have change of velocity. So acceleration becomes by change of the magnetic field strength. Then the time zero comes into operation. Then you understand what is accelerated as a strength of the magnetic field. The lower strength pulls the upper strength to attract itself, to gain itself energy. If we have to if we redefine the acceleration, and is written here, instead of being change in velocity over a change in time, this is in the matter state. If we define acceleration in the speed of magnetic field, it comes from change in the strength of magnetic field, not change in the velocity. Then you understand zero time exists, you don't ever have a time because it's instantaneous. And then all the equations we have, like as Alex referred to, E equal mc squared, has a totally different meaning. I never go into the details of these things because we already have enough problem with the scientists, with the basic plasma, let alone explaining the speed of the travel or acceleration. That's why you can travel from Earth to Moon in seconds, because there is no velocity. You change what we call the strength of the field. The strength of the gravitational, you become pulled in. The strength of the magnetical, you get thrown out. These are the things in the future we really define in a plasma condition. Then we understand we cannot have a plasma as field, as rays in a gravitational dimension or magnetical dimension. It becomes collective because you need two different strengths to be able to have that velocity, to be able to gather energy. This is why I never release formulas, because the formulas, if we start writing the formulas in the world of the plasma technology, the whole present physics is down the chute coming to space technology. Because every fuel, every rocket is calculated on these bases. That's why a lot of people have a problem to understand the plasma technology and understanding of how we make gravitational magnetical. We don't create acceleration. We create change of magnetic field, which already exists in the universe. We don't need to generate it. We just jump into it. And then the whole gravitational and magnetical field makes totally different story. And that's why even when Alex goes and shows E equal to mc squared is zero doesn't work, because Einstein made a lot of assumptions to get to this. When you speak scientifically, I can give you everything in a scientific manner, that's what it is. But when you start speaking the way you do, then I put different information in. You see what you tell me is total, doesn't fit into the nature of the universal work. In a way, if you look at it, a magnetical field as it goes is like what we call Chinese firework. You see fires drops out from it till it goes to the top. Those drops don't fall. There are loops of plasmas of the fields, which they create their own gravitational falling back by their speed. It never diminishes. And a simple explanation of acceleration in the world of plasma, now you see what you said doesn't fit at all. That's why I tell you, what you tell us is irrelevant, because acceleration in plasma technology, in space technology, is change of not a speed, not change of velocity, but it's a change of magnetic field strength, which has no velocity, has nothing to do with velocity, and it's got nothing to do with time. That's how we travel zero time. This is what I said, the new technology which we'll bring out of Iran will change the course of all this knowledge, but just give us time. I can go from velocity of 1 to 1 billion by just changing the strength of the field. I don't need to change anything else. No speeding up, no burning. Just jumping into a field of higher order, which is in the magnetic field, is very easy because full spectrum of it exists in the universe. Now you understand what I tell you haven't understood properly?
Aveți dreptate. O să mă uit cu mai mare atenție la câmpurile magnetice de acum încolo.
You are right, Mr. Keshe. I have to be more careful and to look at magnetical fields starting from nowadays.
Pentru că dacă vrei să faci o unitate de transport, ai nevoie de câmpuri magnetice, n-ai nevoie de cele gravitaționale.
If you want to make a unit of transportation, you need magnetical fields, not gravitational fields.
No, you need both. You need both. At the moment when we want to reach Earth from Moon, we don't work with only gravitational. We always create a balance of the two and continuous conversion of one to the other. Otherwise, you get stuck halfway in the middle.
Ai înțeles? Trebuie să traduc, Adrian?
The space technology, when you speak about gravitational magnetical, you don't change your speed. You exchange between their strength and you exchange between gravitational magnetical at the same time. This is why most of you cannot fly. And when we go to the flight system, we fly immediately because you have not understood the principle of the space technology. In the space of the plasma, we don't break when we get to the moon. By controlling the gravitational magnetical, we convert. That's why we don't burn when we go in. When shuttle comes in, you get your acceleration wrong, you get the angle of entry wrong, you burned out. In the plasma technology, you convert 4 things at the same time, but you have to watch what you're doing. Otherwise, you get repelled by the moon's gravitational, magnetical, more than the absorption of the attraction of its gravity. There's much more into the space technology than what we thought, but we just touched what we call scratch the surface that people understand. But when it comes to true velocity and true plasma technology, you're still working with matter state and trying to fit it into plasma state, and that doesn't work.
Ai înțeles, Adrian, că...
Mulțumesc frumos. Thank you, Mr. Keshe,
You're welcome.
Thank you.
But please do not push this misunderstanding as there is something wrong. You have not understood the principle. I just showed you a little light into the knowledge of what is still hiding from public. We don't put in public.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And eu vă cer iertare pentru că v-am provocat în această seară și să știți că am făcut-o cu un scop.
I apologize because I challenged.
No, there is no need for apology. No, don't apologize. Just understand the technology and allow other people who try to explain their terms and terminology. Because the way it has to be, we are all open to technology. We are open, and I listen to a lot of teachings by a lot of people without you knowing. I come through the back doors. We sit in different names, and I sometimes listen to people. And there is a lot of, all the teaching is not correct. All the teaching is not perfect. But when we see a group of people start thinking they start a new thing and they discover between their own mistake, glorifying it. In the past, we used to let it go. Now we don't do. Even in different organizations, Keshe Foundation, we do the same. Because it's harder to correct it later than to stop it moving. And this misunderstanding has started between 2 or 3 people in the Romanian community. And will you stop it before it goes any further?
Okay, Mr. Keshe, thank
Very
you. Romanian community,
Hopefully we see you in July in the conference.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Romanian
you.
community is here for you. It's
Thank
not
you
for
very
me, it's not from Salomea, it's not from Jalal, it's
No,
not
no,
for-
no, no. It's for all of us. Keshe Foundation is a collective organization.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. Sorry about this, Alex, but I think you learned something extra.
Well, I opened a can of worms, and I thank you very, very much for clarifying. I've wanted to talk about this for a long time, and obviously I hit a nerve today, and but
No, you didn't touch a nerve. It's just that when there is a misrepresentation, you're correct when you speak about the matter state, but when you speak when it's misrepresented in a different way, we have to stop it, because in the past we used to let it go. And I listened to your teaching. It's beautiful how you represent it, but it's mainly on a matter state.
and Mr. Keshe, that is one of my limitations. I don't have access to classified information or lab or any research. I'm just Joe Muck and Fudge here in Canada.
But I hope you learned something new.
Oh, well, I sure did. And I'm deeply appreciate your intervention today.
Thank you.
As always.
Thank
There's
you
no
very
problem. There's no problem there. I'm just trying to contribute as best as I can.
I think we need to thank Adrian to make a mistake that Mr. Keshe come in and correct and adding. Thank all of you.
Yeah, I just have a question for, I guess it would be Alex. I was so happy to hear Mr. Keshe talk about, to me, everything starts off with the magnetical, let's say rays. Everything is magnetical rays. And then what happens, because they're in motion and all the rest of it, then those fields are attracted. But one of them can I don't know if you want to call it from the one end, can circle around to the other and become gravitational. Now, I don't know who was teaching that particular one, but it's been sticking in my head because I couldn't figure out how could one do it. Is it correct that one can circle around and then one end is magnetical repulsing, and then it circles around and is gravitational going in?
Have you seen the cat or dog chase its tail?
Yes.
Such a great question, Gail. Such a great question. So why aren't more people asking that question? Okay, because no, the thing is that when you look at the cover of this particular book, you see that the two plasma fields are different in magnitude, and they have to be different. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why the North Pole is considered the emitter and the South Pole is considered the absorbers, because there is a difference. There's a slight difference, and many times Mr. Keshe has reinforced that particular notion. So that difference is slight, but it's enough to create a flow. So the question then becomes, if the energy is emitting from the North Pole, and that being the North Pole, they are all of the same polarity, so they are repelling. And this is how, from the North Pole, the point of the North Pole, it flows right around the planet. So if it's diverging at the North Pole, and those rays are magnetical or negative, how is it possible for them to be converging at the South Pole? And it's been confounding to me that science has, never really explained that. I mean, that's such an obvious question, isn't it? I mean, that's why you're asking that question. It's such an obvious question. and they're not explaining it. And invariably they come with the answer is, I don't know. And, you know, for us lay people.
Do you want me to answer you?
Oh my God. I relinquished the floor. Do you want to wait screen?
No. Let me explain to you. It's very simple to understand it. When you throw a stone up in the air, it reaches a point that it cannot radiate anymore. Then it comes back. If you calculate its acceleration as you in your teaching, the closer it gets to the source where it was propelled from, it has a higher speed. It has a higher force because it's gathered all these energies coming much faster to the point of interaction. With the magnetical fields, when they reach the point that the field strength cannot or interacts with the environment that is overwhelming their position or their interaction, they come back. But when they come back to another stone that the mass they went, they gather more fields from their environment because they have a connection field with the other fields in the environment. When we throw a stone, we get a stone back. When we throw a stone, we get a mountain back. When it comes to gravity, that's why it's bigger, because it's not just what you call has a resistance and it stays the same. It has no resistance. It gathers more of in its environment, which are of the same strength to itself. And that's why there's a difference between a gravity or a field environment and a matter state. If you go back to the teaching, we say why when we get the fields going through the South Pole, they appear much stronger at the North Pole, because within the center of the Earth, there are other fields which are given up by other elements or materials in there, which are the strength of the field of the gravity which came in, they add to it, it piles up. It's like fueling it more. And that's why magnetical goes out faster and we see a higher heat. It's the same thing, but when it comes to a gravity return, it does the same thing. It gathers more fields, it becomes heavier, it becomes more powerful. That's why the gravity is stronger at the center of where you actually propelled it. In defense technology, we create these kind of systems, but we actually pulse out gravity fields. We don't pulse out magnetic field. It's a specific, what we call space technology. Because when we send a pulse of gravity, whatever is on the way, it gets pulled into it. It literally makes a 0 point. And that's why you get more gravitational fields get stronger as they come in, because on the way back, they are connected to the other field of strength that they just merge into. And they come back to their own source because they have a point of reference. Return to the sender. Because the source has an embedded code field of strength that connects it to it. And this is where the old science went totally wrong. We can literally, in the technology, if we understand, if there is a meteorite that we know we cannot change it, we can reposition the Earth by pulling its gravitational field in slightly different direction. This is what happens to it as it's getting closer to the sun anyway. That's why it accepts a different orbital, what we call diameter, as it every time travels. Because it's absorbing more in the field strength from its environment. That's why the masses gets more. If you look at the different planetary system, when they entered, they are a big giant gas because they have no mass. They cannot be pulled. As it gathers mass and it becomes a matter state of, the sun pulls it in because now it has a fixed position absorption. That's why we put the mass on top of us. That's why one of the best thing you can do when you go to the mountains, you see they cut the mountain on the side, or you see hills cut, have a look. Then you see how much we've been pulled. The science of geology is not just the layers, it shows the pull of the gravity of the, what we call inertial mass, which is added to. Our magma is continuously increasing because it can hold certain mass. It's like when you walk on a swamp, on a wood. Depends how much pressure you put on the wood is how much you go deeper in the swamp. That mass on the top, which we are converting from the fields of the universe or solar system or the sun, is putting pressure on the magma. So the magma inside is growing by mass of what is on top of it, which is absorbed from the top. And this itself increases the gravitational field of the Earth, or what you want to call.
Mr. Keshe, I didn't read your book. I have just a simple question.
Yes, but scientifically, I explained to you what is there. You don't need to read the book.
I just muted you for interrupting. I'm sorry about that, but would you allow Mr. Keshe to finish, please?
In the world of plasma technology, you don't think about the matter state. You always think in the plasma state, interaction of the field state. So when you throw a mass in a matter state, you get the same mass back. Yes.
Hello.
Yes. Can you hear me?
I think she muted herself. She's not hearing us.
No. So in a way, the simplest way to understand is not a stone. It's in return a gravitational field, which is the field itself returning, absorbs other fields from its environment. So it becomes heavier. It becomes bigger plasma mass volume strength by the field strength, not by the plasma strength. If we get plasma strength gravitational, it just, if it comes to Earth, it just blows the Earth up. It's just like getting hit by a rocket, a massive field energy. These are minute field strength, which they get heavier. And by the law of physics, why gravitational always comes and goes out is because the center of the planetary system, like Earth, they're like generators. They add to the higher strength zone. With the gravity, they come in from the lower strength zone collection. It's correct that depends where you stand. But in that position to stand, if you look at it as a car which is driving through a traffic light, depends where you are. As we say, if it's coming to you, it's magnetical, it's going gravitational. The fuel tank of the car, from where it leaves you, from what you absorb till it passes you, when you observe that it's gone, the fuel tank is less because fuel has been consumed to pass you. But in the plasma technology, it's totally different. As it passes you, it absorbs some of the energy of you into it. There has more fuel on the gravitational side. Than the magnetical side. But you think it has more fuel on the magnetical side, because now it's going to the next destination. But at the same time, the car itself is radiating more fields out to be able to absorb itself to have a fuel for the next one. And in the system itself adds to the field strength, because it's like Earth in a plasma condition. The knowledge of the plasma in space technology is totally different. You have to think in many dimensions. And you have to understand that your stone you throw up is gathering energy from its environment as it comes to you. It's not a stone. If the stone was 10 grams you threw up, you're getting a stone 20 grams back. But at the same time, your magnetical is not thrown a 10 gram stone, it's a 20 gram stone on the magnetical, but getting the energy from gravitation. It's a cumulative energy transfer from both fields, magnetical and gravitation. But the magnetical field always have a resistance force ahead of it, where gravitational field have a pull field strength, because it cleans itself in front, it clears most of the things which are matching it. In a way, it's like a vacuum cleaner cleans to itself as it comes. But of the lower order, not of the higher order. Where in the magnetical, we give up the higher order, and there is no conversion. As it's going through the plasma, all the fields of the plasma, all the magma of the plasma of the Earth, all the center core of the Earth have residue of fields which matches, and they add into it, they just pile it in. Then you understand why we have a higher strength at the North Pole than the South Pole. And all the fields in the magnetical are connected to the gravitational because they feed each other. And that's why in that connection, to be kept complete, we create what we call the shell, what we call the atmosphere. Because the fields of the gravitational have a field strength common denominator with the magnetical, because they came from the same source. That's their origin, the center of the Earth. So they make a loop. Doesn't matter how far they go from this planet. In the solar system, somebody sees our planet somewhere in the universe. So it means our field even reaches that part, but at the same time it's connected to the gravitational field, which pulls it back, which if you've seen it, you find a match. By finding a match, you add to it, you convert it back to me, which becomes the gravitational of yours. If you think in a world of the present science, you have a radar. But the radar goes till it hits something, otherwise you don't see it. Magnetic fields are the same. Magnetically, they go till they find a matching field strength that by returning it, that becomes the gravitational of itself. Otherwise, they carry on going. Nobody sees it. They are not aware of it till you find matching point. If there is no creature in the universe or position in the universe that can be of the same strength of the magnetic field of the Earth, they will not see it. That's why the universe is so transparent to us, but in reality, it's a solid wall. If you want to calculate every strength of every field, of every, what we call a spectrum of the magnetic field, gravitational magnetic field. And I thought many of you should have understood this if you work with nanomaterial. Then we understand how much we add into the knowledge by understanding a combination of the fields, not singularity of the fields. And understanding when you have a field, you have a plasma, be it like a light, then it gathers fields to itself. It absorbs on its path the fields which are of its own matching strength. Even magnetical fields, for them to radiate, they have to find a magnetical field of their own that they can diverge, as you said, to different dimensions and directions. The magnetical field, that's how they pull themselves to different dimensions. We can still see gravitational fields if you're on the path, or we give some energy of the same strength to them. In the future, when we create systems, you see a magnetical and gravitational of the same system next to each other as a field. Then you understand why gravity is always heavier, but it's heavier of the lower field strength, where magnetical is heavier on the higher field strength because it has corrected. But in essence, the seed of the two is the same. I hope I could explain it in a very simple way.
Mr. Keshe, sorry to bother you. I didn't hear a lot of your teaching because my sound is not working good. I have a question. Is there any condition between magnetic and gravitational? There is any vacuum condition?
You mean connection or condition?
Condition or connection?
It's a big difference.
Big difference.
Big difference. There is a connection because one is a residual of the other in common strength or in common denominator strength of the magnitude, the order of magnitude. They are always connected. The reason for it is that any ray which is emitted from anywhere in the universe always has had to have its field strength matching that it pulls into it, what we call gravitation. We don't have any rays in the universe as such which have no source. It's one of more or less impossibilities of the world of creation. In a way, if we have, we say that we have no connection to the Creator, and that does not exist. A lot of mistake when we go deeper in the work of Einstein, a lot of problem because of him has been created. Misrepresenting the knowledge in a way of the matter state, and then when you want to teach plasma, does not fit. Does not fit. The equation of what we saw, energy is equal mc squared, is one of the biggest problems the physicists of the plasma can ever encounter. Because gravity has no mass unless it interacts. If you read the book number 1, it tells you what a mass is. Unless its interaction with its magnetical. And then if it's of the same strength of the magnetical as gravitation, in a part of its spectrum, not in all of its spectrum. We don't go deep anymore into the teaching on the physical side of the what we call plasma technology. But these are things which we don't teach first. People cannot understand, and partially is considered that people understood, or some of the knowledge seekers already have understood.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just to trying to explain. We don't discuss these things, we don't explain, because a lot of it goes into the deep space technology, which if we go into it, will create more problem for us than before.
Yeah, understood. I have experience a little bit. I shared before, so that's why I understand there is something.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I ask a question, Mr. Keshe? This is Ed.
Yes, go ahead.
Is the difference between magnetical and gravitational just the difference in strength of the ray in relation to its core programming, where it first came out from?
I don't understand.
You talked about that the magnetical ray, when it comes out, it has a certain core strength. That's why it always returns.
Yes.
Is the reason it is magnetical or gravitational because of the strength of that is higher or lower than that core programming that it came from?
The way to look at it is very simple. If something is magnetical, it must have found a match somewhere that is going to. No field in the universe moves in any direction unless it has found a position of the match to move into. You understand?
Yes, very much.
So you have to have a position that you're going to, and this makes you a magnetical entity. You understand? So
yes.
In that process, we look at how things turned up to be and how they are according to where it's going to. And this is part of the understanding of the space technology.
So when it gets
what has attracted this light or this entity to go to? You understand? So it's not that this just comes out and is what we call in English, nilly-willy goes. Something has attracted it. You understand?
Yes, you told me this a number of weeks ago when I asked you what changed the light into a light rather than a plasma. It was a matching field strength somewhere in the universe that caused it to want to go there. And I understand that. So when it gets there, does it goes through the gravitation, the fields of the entity which it was attracted to, and it gets added to?
We do not know, because not all of it goes to the same entity. Part of it goes to that entity. Because no field transfers all of its energy to one point in the universe. You understand? There's always something left of the origin. That's why we have the expansion of the universe.
Okay, I got to think on that one.
Yeah, because we think we give everything, but in fact, we don't give nothing. We hold on to most of, but what we leave is enough for the entity to survive.
Well, the source of my question was, you indicated that the magnetical goes until it interacts, but then it always returns to its source, and so then it becomes gravitational to its original source. And I wondered if the interaction with the entity that it went to.
Let me explain to you. Let me explain to you in a very simple way. You know the slingshot?
Yeah.
We use a slingshot to throw a stone. With the gravity, the slingshot is the magnetical, but when you throw the slingshot, in your slingshot, you have already connected elastic to the back of your stone before you send it out. You understand?
Okay. Yeah.
And this elastic will pull it back to itself again. But in the process of pulling back, it has let's say honey on it. It attracts more other bits on the way back.
Okay.
It gains field strength from its environment, but it's a convergence, or what we call, in a way, it throws everything out, but at the same time as it's throwing out, it's adding to itself when it comes back of the lower order, lower strength.
Okay. Thank you.
This we do, especially in a plasma reactors technology, is one of the cornerstones of the motion. And in many teachings, if you listen or you heard before, always refer to it. We slow down and we get to the point when we get to the moon. It's not that we put a brake down. We just change the gravity to the magnetical, but the plasmatic gravity magnetical. This is why we always come as a collection of fields, not a singularity of the fields.
I think we may bring this public teaching into our deciphering laboratory in the private teachings, so we can unwind it a bit more.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
Mr. Keshe, a question about protoplasm or single-celled organisms. Is that a misnomer then? That they're not single-celled, but they're a collection of fields within one cell, what we consider to be a cell?
Of course.
And this is one of the reasons that medicine has not been able to explore the inside of a cell other than, basically cytoplasm, nuclei, and mitochondria.
Yeah, but even that cell is a collection of different plasmas. Single cells interact. They have emotion.
They do move, and they do digest, and they have a direction.
Yeah, but in a way, they're a single plasma. If you explore your ganses, single ganses, you'll see the same thing. They're dynamic, they absorb energy from their environment, but they have, you see, single cells are grown in a specific conditions. If you change their environment, they do not stay single cell. If you change the gravitational magnetic environment of them, they open up or they absorb energy from the others. This is a part of the work of the plasma. And when you're a single cell, you're a collection of fields. Not, or in a way, you're a collection of plasmas.
The collection of fields being the plasma.
In a way, but they create their own, what we call miniature plasma inside the cell. You see, when you're a single cell, you're like a planet. A planet is a single cell. It gives fields, it takes fields, and it survives, and it has a heartbeat. Any system, even like the sun, a star is a single cell. But the dimension of what it carries inside it, what it manifests itself on, depends what its outside environment has allowed it to grow. If you change the environment of a single cell, most of it becomes double cells or quadruple cells, because it absorbs more energy, or it just busts open because it gets so much energy that it cannot, or gives so much energy that it diminishes to a small size. No one has ever tested a single cell by change of the fields around them, outside them. Not material, but the fields, and then you see the change.
So growth then could be interpreted to be an accumulation of mass.
Accumulation of the fields which create mass. If you read book number 1, when I explained what is the mass and what is the what do you call weight, then you understand it easy.
Well, if you're absorbing more light, you're absorbing more mass, and that is changing the environment, or that is changing.
Not necessarily. That is true maybe in the matter state, but not in the plasma state.
Oh, you mean then it becomes catalytic?
Mm-hmm. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Well, you know, when you have a consistency of the logic, then you know that's why we've done thousands of hours of teaching. Thank you very much. I didn't expect to open up. Well, I did expect to open up a can of worms, but
but it's not a can of worms. It's a can of knowledge.
This is a barrel of monkeys.
Depends. What do you expect from this barrel?
Oh, you know what? I expect beauty.
Yeah, but we have to understand the science. This is the problem. When, and at the same time, do not mix it between matter state and the plasma state. The biggest problem is when the two gets mixed and you try to explain one in the other. Our plasma physicists in the future will have the same problem, because now they want to explain in the matter state. Now you explain matter state in the plasma, the reverse will be harder. It'll be much harder.
So if someone like myself puts some plasma water in the gas tank, am I mixing the matter state and the plasma state together? And is that plasma picking up energy as I'm driving around? Is that what is extending the energy of the gas?
You know, some knowledge seekers years ago start putting gas in the tank, and they saw a lot of differences. The original knowledge seekers, the early ones, because they were too enthusiastic to see things, but they never understood what they did. But they actually created a very funny condition that they mixed the matter and the plasma together, and going through their cars, they created gravitational fields. And the cars were doing more mileage for the same fuel tank because they were reducing the weight of the car. And they never understood.
But if you were just using it in the gasoline with nothing else there, let's say I didn't have any plasma water in there, I didn't have anything in the cigarette lighter, nothing in the tires, would it add energy to the gasoline? Would it pick up fields as you're driving, as you were just describing?
No. It doesn't add, in a way. It's a very double-edged knife, I call it. What it does is that as your plasma goes through the engine, as it goes through the exhaust, as it goes through the system, part of it converts into nanoplasma structure, which then, because of the high speed, especially in your motors and in some of the rotating parts, you create what we call a plasma state condition, where the car will interact with the field of the earth. And then, yes, you convert the fields, what we call the GANs, into the fields, but not into a fuel. Big difference.
The same happens when you add GANS water into the tires.
You create a new dynamic structure.
Well, we also wanted to see what the tailpipe emissions would be after the fact, and the fact that you could take a polluting vehicle and make it almost absence of hydrocarbons and nitrous gases is what was confusing to us, because we didn't have an idea of how it interacted with the matter state in that respect.
There's a lot of what I call, there's a need to understand how your gases are created and how they interact in the matter state, in your fuel system, in your body system, with your batteries, because what they call the fields pass your ignition system, pass part of electrical system, and these go back into the battery. And then they become an additional energy which come back in as a feeder. When you deal with a plasma in your car, it's not just a fuel which goes into the tank. The energy plasma goes through your electrical system too. In some of the cars, it goes even to the body of the cars. We've seen cars with the rust having no rust, just by putting the fuel in. The same processes with nanocoat in what we call maglev systems.
Yeah, because there's been, if people who are car aficionados, like of course us, we're the four-wheel race, we noticed long time ago that cars that were made in like the Europeans, in Britain and such, they used what was called a positive ground battery, and the North Americans used what was called a negative ground battery. And so cars in Europe, they wouldn't really suffer from the rust condition. And it's almost like the polarity of the battery determined how the body and the earth and the moisture interacted. It was almost like it swapped polarities. And so we looked at that for many years, trying to figure out how we could utilize that. And so when the maggrav for the car came along, that's what we struggled with, is that by this time we were struck with only negative ground batteries and never really got to experiment much with the positive and see if that would have made any difference with respect to I don't know if it's like how you look at the sensorial line between the two halves of the pulsation, but whether it gave it a different effect as it was like the neutral of the matter.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you remember, they used to earth the cars in different way. The connection wasn't about which way was the negative. The connection comes where the car was earthed to its body. You understand?
Instead of, you mean like with relation to the boot or
yeah.
And that was oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Or if you earth it to the front of the car. And how that earth connection was done. Did you, for example, if we had a painting, if you had a scratch on where you put it and you went directly to the metal, you saw a different result than if you just put your connection to the paint of the body. You understand? Because you never reached the matter state partially.
Well, that's kind of where it was going with regard to how we used to use generators and then we switched to alternators, but yet with the generators, we were able to increase efficiencies by using the atmospheric, I want to say, plasma that exists, where you were able to tap into the hydrogen almost of the atmosphere to improve efficiencies. And I'd hope that we could continue on down that path, and maybe we will in the future, once everything gets sorted out, when we try to look at more efficient ways to power things that can utilize the atmosphere, which is so non-polluting in a way. So thank you. I have one more question. Do you have any opinion on the new president of Iran and what's going to occur, Mr. Keshe?
Absolute silence at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank everybody for allowing me to make a presentation today. This has been extra special. And Mr. Keshe, I really can't thank you enough. This has been the North American Corona International Team Meeting. I'm going to sign off to you, Mark. I'm sure there's a lot more to cover, and I'm going to hand it over to you. Thanks, everybody.
Disclaimer. The information and education material contained herein is meant to promote the general understanding and dialogue of GAN's processing. Such information is not meant or intended to serve as a substitute for a healthcare professional's clinical training, experience, or judgment. For patients and individuals, such information is not to be a substitute for professional medical, therapeutic, or healthcare advice or counseling. For medical issues or concerns, including decisions about medications and other treatments, readers, viewers, listeners should always consult their physician or, in serious cases, seek immediate assistance from emergency personnel. Prescription information, procedures, and use of medical devices information should be undertaken only by properly trained and certified medical personnel. We specifically disclaim any warranties, express or implied, including implied warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. Such information is provided, as is, and is believed to be accurate at the time of its publishing, but it is the viewer's job to evaluate the accuracy of any information found in this presentation. Every case presented is of their own experience, applied by themselves for themselves, and it applies to their case only. Every person experiencing health problems should seek professional medical advice and consult their course of treatment with a doctor. The processes of plasma balancing described herein are a natural process which supports the body but does not replace medical advice or therapies one is already subject to.